We finally have a beautiful day in the Northeast when it's not 90 and humid. It's probably 70 degrees and dry and beautiful. So I'm outside and talking with somebody on the other side of the continent in Sacramento. Welcome. How are you doing?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you, Pam. I'm so
Great.
excited to be here.
Me too. And I'm going to do a little introduction because I love what Mary Ann does because it's one of those things that as much as there's a lot of awareness now around nutrition and eating, I don't think the word is out there quite enough that people really go, oh, that could be me. So
Mhm.
what Mary Ann does is she helps women with food allergies, intolerances, improve their gut and immune health so that they can actually relieve, and here are the key things: painful skin and debilitating digestive issues. And I think, Mary Ann, so many of us kind of walk around with these issues, these symptoms, these
Mhm.
problems that we don't even realize
Yeah.
could be completely related to how we eat. And I'm going to give you an example and then kind of ask a question at the same
Mhm.
time. I about, I'm going to say 10 years ago now, all of a sudden just broke out in hives all over.
Mhm.
And every day I had these hives. It was intolerable. And so I called my doctor and he said, this is probably food related, but take kind of singular and um, I forget what the other one was. Anyway, two different allergy pills to keep it in check until we figure it out.
Mhm.
And I've never had the courage to go off of those to actually figure it out. So that is probably something I'm guessing that's diet related.
I would definitely guess it would be. Although surprisingly, a lot of people don't realize the impact that stress has on our gut, and we can talk about that in our conversation as well, because food is super important, absolutely, but stress plays a huge role as well.
Oh, really? So, like physically, like there's chemical stuff happening around stress?
Well, yeah, not just the cortisol that stress is churning up in your body, but it also research is showing now that it literally changes the bacteria in your gut, and it feeds the bad bacteria at the expense of the good bacteria. So
Oh,
it's not unusual for people to have stressful episodes and then have issues. That's why sometimes you get an upset stomach, or maybe you have other nasty digestive things that happen.
wow. So it's both a combination. In other words, eating the right food can help mitigate the impact on the bacteria, but stress is at the same time either helping or hurting it, depending on whether it's good or bad stress, I guess, or is excitement just as devastating on the
Uh,
system?
no, it's the bad stress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean the good stuff is good. I mean anything that makes us feel good is going to make our cells feel good. And as I've heard someone say before, our cells are always listening. So if we're happy and feeling good, our cells are usually happy and feeling good, and they're working at an advantage. Whereas
Got
if
it.
you're not feeling so good, they're sort of working at a disadvantage. They can still do their job, but maybe not as well as they would if we were, optimal.
Got it. Got it. So if somebody did have like a skin issue, let's say, how do they go about figuring out whether it's stress or diet or both? Like what's sort of a way that you help people attack this problem?
Well, I do have them start with taking probiotics or consuming probiotics every day. I should just say that,
Got
because
it.
it's not just about supplements. If you can take a good probiotic, and a lot of the ones on the market, unfortunately, are dead on arrival. They don't have what they say they're going to have in the bottle.
Oh, really?
So
That's
it's
allowed?
yeah. Well, the thing is that it's not. Well, supplements are not really regulated well in the
Okay.
United States.
That's right.
The FDA
Okay.
has enough on their plate. They really don't need another thing to do. So supplements really aren't regulated well, and a lot of times the companies do produce a good product, but the problem is it sits on the shelf. It's extreme heat, or and eventually those bacteria die off. So
Okay.
that's why yogurt, for example, which has great probiotics in it, and sauerkraut, kimchi, and those kind of things, they're usually refrigerated. The ones that have the bacteria in it that are
Got
live and
it.
worthwhile for you are refrigerated.
Does that go for
Um,
supplements as well? Does supplements get refrigerated if they're probiotic?
it depends. Some do, yeah. I
Okay.
actually saw a naturopath for a period of time who got me started on some probiotics, and they were refrigerated. And he sent me home with them with a little cooler and an ice pack. I mean, he was that serious about keeping them viable.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yogurt, is there a difference between Greek yogurt and regular yogurt for
Well, I think
probiotic
it's
purposes?
more in how it's made versus the probiotics.
Okay, so each are equally as healthy for us.
I mean, I'm not a nutritionist, but in my opinion, yes.
Gotcha, gotcha. So if somebody were kind of starting down the road, then it sounds like you'd say, let's get started with probiotics because whatever the issue is,
Mhm.
that's going to help combat it. Is that the case? And then you start dealing with how they change their eating habits, or how does that work?
So yeah, so really we want to heal the gut. And I don't know if you've heard of the term leaky gut. It's a little more out there in the mainstream
I've
now.
heard of it, but I don't know what it means.
So leaky gut is when our small intestine, which does the bulk of our digestion, it kind of gets a little bit more permeable. So in other words, imagine like the cells are tightly wound in your intestine normally. But
Mhm.
if you get leaky gut, they open up a little bit and allow particles that are not meant to get out of the small intestine to get into the bloodstream. Which I
Ah,
mean, this was huge learning for me when I was really suffering from my allergies and sensitivities and all these things that I had no idea what was going on. The doctors kept telling me, "Oh, you're highly allergic," but I'm like, "To what? Nobody in my family has this problem, you know." So yeah, it's something a lot of people still aren't aware of.
is it reversible?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And when
Okay.
you start to heal the gut, the good bacteria and probiotics are helpful in healing the gut, but that's not all. You have to remove toxins, which can put
Got
a
it.
burden on your body as well. And pesticides, food additives, chemicals, all the nasty things that we find in our food today and environment, they can unfortunately damage the gut.
Got it. But it is you can return it back to its non-leaky state, basically, is what I'm hearing
Yes.
by just
That's,
getting away from some of those toxins that
yes.
expand it.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not just natural that with age this would happen. There's something aggravating it causing the problem.
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
your body will give you signs and you'll have symptoms. If you have a leaky gut, you will have symptoms.
Okay.
Digestive symptoms that ones I experienced for years. I mean, most of my life, that I believe honestly were caused by antibiotic use throughout my
Ah,
childhood and beyond.
okay.
And how many of us have not taken antibiotics in our lifetime?
Yeah. Oh, I,
Um,
I remember as a kid, I had infections regularly because of asthma. And
yeah.
so we took antibiotics, and probably what I know now tells me there could have been a natural healing for the asthma that would have caused me not to take the antibiotics that would have not
Mhm.
aggravated the whole cycle.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what I think I've been learning. So, why eat with ease? I love the name.
Because one of the things that I really missed when I was on my healing journey, as I call it, is I could not enjoy food and just pick up something. I'd be at a party or I couldn't just pick up anything and be confident that it would agree with me, that it wouldn't cause a horrible swollen red rash or, so I really want people to be able to eat with ease. And that's part of it. But there's another component that I was not even aware of at the time in my personal life was I was number one, addicted to sugar.
Oh,
And number two, I was an emotional eater. So eat with ease to me kind of encompasses all those things.
got it. And you coach people through the different aspects of it. Is that how it works?
That's the goal, yes.
Yeah. So, do you do one-on-one coaching? Do you do group coaching? How does this work?
I do have an online program that kind of throws out a lot of information, so we don't have to spend time on one-on-one calls talking
Awesome.
about all that. So you have that background. But yes, I do work one-on-one because we're all so unique.
Hmm.
We all have our own issues, and so to me it's really important to have time to explore. First of all, what is it that you want to do in
Hmm.
coaching? a lot of people think. A health coach just comes in and says, okay, stop doing this, this, and this, and you'll be good. And, yes, there are things that I encourage my clients to do, but I certainly don't dictate, what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. That's entirely up to them. They have autonomy, they have free will, and I want to honor that because we all need to be honored and respected.
I love that. So you're providing the education and the recommendations basically, and helping them if they want to be held accountable to be held accountable for what the choices are. And it's interesting because I've just talking to somebody this morning about the one-on-one sort of artisan, high touch boutique business model. And I think a lot of people have an impression that one-on-one type business can never be a good business model. And I was pointing out to him that it's a business model. It's just different than a, commodity based, we crank out, 50 clients a day or a week, and we just make this money. And I don't think one is bad or good, but I do want people to understand that what you're describing, it does work as a business model. And the reason is that for that kind of value, there's always going to be a client out there. So you're not trying to fill this pipeline with people who you don't touch with your messaging. And I love your website. And folks, just so you know, there's a great starter kit on Mary Ann's website. And I'm going to share quickly the website name here, but I'm also going to drop it in the comments here because there's an amazing starter kit. It actually has a quiz with it. It has a book with it. And I'm sure there's some other things in there too, right?
Yes, and I do share. I share my top 8 tips, and actually, probiotics, like I mentioned, is the number 1 tip. But there are several other tips that I had a hard time narrowing them down. But I figured out my top 8 tips to put in there to help people.
That is great. Now, I also think you're about to do a webinar or workshop.
I am.
Tell me about that. What are you going to cover on that?
So actually that one is kind of an interactive workshop where I'll talk a little bit about food intolerances and food sensitivities, food intolerances. They're kind of used interchangeably.
Okay.
There's a very mild difference, but not much of a difference.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have known. That's got to be subtle. I wouldn't have known.
I mean, well, they're kind of related. Like a food intolerance is really a food sensitivity, like taken to the extreme, where you literally cannot process that food. Your body cannot digest it for whatever reason.
Got it. As opposed to digesting it and it aggravates you.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Food sensitivities are foods that just don't quite feel good in your body. Maybe because you have a leaky gut and they're getting out in your bloodstream and causing allergies or rashes, or that's a lot of the reason that you get those. In the workshop, we'll be talking about going through like a list of questions that I have actually in my starter kit.
Okay.
Like having you gain an awareness of where you are, because we get so normalized when we think about like, oh, my stomach hurts again. Oh, it's just something I ate.
I'm just used to it. Yeah,
exactly. And so the next day it happens again. Oh, I better not eat that again. So it shouldn't be a normalized thing, but it is, because we go on with our lives and we just don't think about what's happening. So that's number 1 key to figure out where you are. Like, have you taken hormones, antibiotics, lots of prescription medications? What kind of food are you eating? Unfortunately, our American diet is referred to as the SAD diet, the standard American diet, which is sad enough. But that alone, the lack of fiber that most Americans take in, all the processed foods with, like I said, all the chemicals and saturated fats, all that is not necessarily good for our gut and could actually contribute to leaky gut.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love that. So you're going to cover that in the workshop as well for people?
I touch on it. I mean, it's only an hour, so I mean, I could talk about this forever.
I'm sure.
Once we go through the quiz, then they have an opportunity to, I share my tips and we can talk about like, well, what resonates with you? What sounds like your first step? I may list them in a certain order, but maybe you're called to go about it in a different way, or you're not ready. One of the steps is eliminate gluten, dairy, sugar, and I actually add soy to it because soy is a very GMO crop.
Oh.
And for those people who don't know much about GMOs, they're not horrible themselves. However, because they're genetically modified to accept all these extra pesticides. Well, where do you think the pesticides go when they get fed to the plant? They become kind of part of
They
that.
don't rinse off when we wash the vegetables.
Exactly. It's not like you can just rinse off your corn or rinse off your soy and it's good to go. So
that's interesting because I remember I have a when I was working with my trainer, she said, Pam, if all else, because I was very frustrated trying to figure out what to eat, where to get it, what to do. She goes, Pam, just walk around the outside of the grocery store. Don't walk in the middle aisles, walk around the outside. And basically that means I'd get dairy, meats, and vegetables. But then I realized that not all vegetables are created equal. And does organic mean that they're pesticide free?
Well, it's kind of tricky. So organic doesn't necessarily mean that they're pesticide free, but it means that they have not used the bad pesticides like glyphosate that we're used to hearing about. So they might use more of a natural kind of pesticide.
Got it.
We tend to think that they are all pesticide free, which is not necessarily the case.
Got it. Okay.
But it's a better choice than the conventional grown vegetables that we know have cancer producing pesticides, sprayed on them.
Yep. And it is a reality. And that is the thing. So I do tend to get the organic. Now, my daughter's very much a foodie and pays attention to all of this and will help us kind of understand it a little bit. But generally, I think like these farm shares and things like that are really good because usually they screen the farmers for what they use and it tends to be more organic as well. So that's kind of another tip I had picked up. But when somebody comes to the workshop, can they find out about it? First of all, should they just reach out through the website?
If they go to my website and download my starter kit,
perfect.
I can reach out to them. Then I'll have their email and I can send them a quick email saying, hey, if you're interested, you can join me on our webinar next week. But totally up to them though. There's no pressure. I don't feel like I have to be a salesman because when we're ready and we want to make positive changes in our life, that's when we'll do it.
This is what I love about what I was talking about before, this business model. Because this business model isn't reliant upon high volumes of sales. It's reliant on people who already know they want to fix something. And I love it. It's how I actually run my business. It's the same way there is a real business model here. And I really commend you for sticking to your guns on that and letting all the noise kind of filter by because there is such a need for what you're doing out there. If they're outside of probiotics, you've kind of given us one free tip and I'm going to pump you for another one because that's the way I am on these. If there's one other tip you could give people before we jump off here today, what would it be?
Well, it's kind of a combo tip. And actually, not all of it is not in my starter kit, but I would definitely say be present and basically listen to your body. Be present and listen to your body. And by being present, I mean in the moment, not worrying because worry again is another form of stress. Not feeling guilty or shame, looking back on the past, that also causes stress in the body.
Good point.
We fail to realize that, when we're not living in the present, we're in one of these states generally. If we're excited, fabulous, great to be excited. But a lot of us are not in a constant state of excitement.
Yeah, I do like that though, because what you're really saying is, look, this is the moment you can focus on. So giving yourself garbage about what you've done in the past there's just no value in it. It's, make the decision now, be excited about the decision now, whatever your decision you're making, be happy, at peace with it. It's the decision. I read something once from a guy who was a mentor for a good while with me. And he said, trust that everybody at every point in time is making absolutely the best decision they can in every moment for them.
Yes.
And it really puts a whole new perspective on a couple of things. One is on, when you get angry at people for doing things, quote unquote, usually 100% of the time, they're doing the best thing they can in the moment based on what they know. But the second is be gentle on yourself that way too. And we so often, I know I do it. I condemn myself for not having lost more weight, for plateauing, for knowing that my hives would go away if I ate better. And I just try
Mhm.
and get off those thoughts as quickly as I can and focus on, hey, you know what? I feel a lot better than I did 3 months ago, 6 months
Yeah.
ago, and I'll feel better tomorrow, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And listening to your body is also key as
Oh,
well, because I know a lot of us, we go through life sort of on autopilot. You know, we're
so
going here, there, and everywhere. And I was,
guilty.
yeah, exactly. And I think most of us are guilty of that, at least at some point in our lives. And when we give ourselves a pill, you know, like to relieve our symptoms, it's basically as, and I say this as this metaphor as a new grandma,
That's
it's like
right.
giving a baby a pacifier. It'll take care of it for a little while, but it's not a long-term solution.
And it's a hint. If you have to do that, it's a hint. So one of the things that you've made me alert to is when I have to take, let's just, for example, an Advil. Um, I take it, but I also think, what is it that I did or that I'm feeling that drove me to this, to need this thing to take care of a symptom? It's like recognizing when I do that, with the exception of supplements,
Mhm.
recognizing that when I do take a pharmaceutical, that I'm treating a symptom, think about what the cause is of the symptom. I never
Mhm.
used to do that before I have talked to you.
Mhm.
I just found that to be a really helpful mindset shift as well. So thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, it's kind of a foreign thing to us because a lot of us don't live in our bodies these days.
No,
You
I
know,
never
we're
paid attention.
exactly, we're so focused everywhere else, that
Mhm.
you know we just don't even recognize what's
Yeah.
going on. And your body loves you. You know,
Yeah.
your
It's
body's
trying
trying to
its
tell
best.
you something.
It's actually
And
giving you information that that's a great point. It's giving us information all the time that we're ignoring.
yeah,
Or can
exactly.
be ignoring. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's a great tip. So folks, look, check out the website. I've put the link here in the page. It's eatswitheasecoaching.com. And if you have questions, feel free to drop them in here wherever you're seeing this. Drop the comments in here. I'll make sure to tag Mary Ann if for whatever reason she is not wherever this is dropping, and she'll be glad to come back and give any answers specifically that we can. Meanwhile, the best tip we can give is listen to your body, pay attention to what it's telling you, because it loves you and it's trying to help you live a better life. That's a great insight that you just gave us at the end of this. So thank you so much for jumping on.
Yes, thank you so much, Pam.
You bet. Everybody have a fantastic Wednesday. We'll see you here in the Profit Concierge group again soon. I know that. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to give us all a bit of really important information.
Wonderful. Take
Take
care,
care,
Pam.
everybody.